solar eclipse happening January 5th, 2019. Let's kind of just give you a tutorial or an intro on what a solar eclipse represents. A solar eclipse on an astronomical level, a solar eclipse happens when the Earth passes through the shadow casted by the moon, which fully or partially blocks the sun. This can only happen when the sun, moon, and Earth are nearly aligned. What does an eclipse mean in astrology? It depends on the type of eclipse, actually. In astrology, a solar eclipse is designated to a certain locality. That's the same concept when you're putting in natal chart data and you need to have the actual location of birth. Locality is important. So the locality to where it can actually be seen, that means if you can't see the solar eclipse, consider it quote-unquote not your problem. As for lunar eclipses, those events are not localized. They can be seen all over the globe. So they don't have specific regions per se, therefore they're attributed to collective mundane trends or events. Since this is a solar eclipse, this is going to be localized to a specific area. The solar eclipse for the 5th of January, it's happening on the 5th of January. It will be partial eclipse, as I already said. It will cast over the eastern Asian continent into the Pacific Ocean and end right at the Gulf of Alaska. When the majority of this the solar eclipse travels over a body of water or less populated areas, it's safe to bet that the major events will be environmental and less sociological, although those can also be contributing factors. So expect natural disasters, abnormal environmental activity, chaotic weather phenomenon in this hemisphere. The effects of the solar eclipse will be localized to the area, and I will show you on the eclipse graph map. So here's an actual map of where the solar eclipse will be seen. As you can tell, it's affecting most of the Asian continent as well as parts of Russia, and it goes to the very tip of the Gulf of Alaska. Although you see the lines here, how they're localized here, this is where the 25 mark right here is where it's going to be its strongest. It does pulsate out or affect other areas, so it's possible that it will influence the Arctic up here. And some of the effects will be felt as far as Indonesia into Papua New Guinea and even parts of Australia as well. And the Gulf of Alaska will be a culprit too. The Hawaiian Islands might also be a casualty in some of these abnormal weather patterns or natural disaster phenomenon. So there's just a close-up to give you an idea. Just wanted everybody to get the visual here because it's important to remember that solar eclipses are localized. So for all those other astrologers, I'm not trying to hate on anybody out there that are giving these predictions for everywhere with the solar eclipse. That's the equivalent to cosmos sun sign astrology, if you ask me. But anyway, let's get back to business. So the locality information for the eclipse. The eclipse will pass over these countries: Russia, China, Japan. I know there's other countries as well, but I'm not gonna zoom in on the geography per se, but it's that general area. The eclipse effects may manifest in parts of Indonesia, Australia, a big maybe, Hawaii and Alaska as well. Let's look at the chart to determine likely scenarios. So here's the chart here. We'll go ahead and just break it down just for educational purposes. If you're learning the actual symbols or anything like that, or just to give you a review. So a solar eclipse is mainly an immediate event. So I always look at the now houses. So we look at the first house here. There's absolutely nothing going on there. We look at the fourth house. We have Ceres and Venus in Scorpio. That would be translated more as a sociological thing than anything. So then we go to look to the seventh house, and as you see this line right here, technically the stellium with the eclipse is in the sixth house for this. So we only have Black Moon, Lilith, and Vesta here. So a lot of this will tie into what I did in my 2019 intro video with the current trends going on right now, are just echoing all over again. And then when we look at the 10th house here, we only have Juno in Taurus. That's mainly the main contributing factor here with some of these aspects to the eclipse itself. So then we look we'll go around the wheel for the future houses. We have Trans-Pluto in the second house. In the fifth house, we have Jupiter in the polar ascendant. In the eighth house, we have Neptune and Chiron. And then we've got nothing going on in the 11th house. So a lot of the actual activity or key players, especially with planets that are attributed to environmental chaos or natural disasters, are actually in a lot of the past houses. This indicates that there's more ongoing environmental concerns, as opposed to there being some sort of sudden event that we wouldn't even fathom out of nowhere. So just to make sure I go over everything, the past house here, the IC in Libra, and we have Pallas. Then the 6th house here, the stellium with the south node, Pluto, Vulcan, the sun, moon, Saturn. And Mercury's not part of the stellium, but it's still in Capricorn. Then in the 9th house, we have Uranus, Eris, the MC, Aries, and Hygeia, and that's stellium in Aries. And then in the 12th house, we have Hades, the Earth symbol, as well as the North Node. So let's go ahead and go on. So the solar eclipse transit talk. A solar eclipse represents sudden events similar to Pluto transit events. It can be destructive and ominous. So I primarily focus on the present houses and future houses. I kind of already talked about that. The now houses are the 1st, 4th, 7th, and 10th, as I showed you. And as you can see, there's not much going on there. Future houses also seem very uneventful in comparison to the past houses. So the themes triggered by this eclipse won't be a new threat, event, or situation, but the escalation of ongoing scenarios. 6th house has that stellium with Saturn, the eclipse, Vulcan, Pluto in Capricorn, with the Earth symbol in Cancer in opposition. Both Capricorn and Cancer are cardinal signs representing action. Environmentally speaking, Pluto is attributed to volcanic activity, and with a conjunction with Vulcan, that leaves little doubt to volatile volcanic activity to be expected. So I searched volcanodiscovery.com to see if any current volcanic activity was recorded. The diagram speaks for itself. So here's the diagram that I got off the volcanodiscovery.com, which is in the volcano news going on. And as you can see here, we're looking obviously in this region. So right here's India. So this is right about where the line starts. So we've got minor volcanic activity going on in some of the islands here, all the way down to like Papua New Guinea. And then we've got some very volatile volcanic activity happening in Japan. There's a close-up right there. So the orange are supposed to be minor volcanic activity or potentials, and then the reds are volatile volcanic activity going on. So when we do a comparison here from the graph for the eclipse as to the volcanic activity, you see here, this is the line, so here's Japan, and so we're looking right here, and this is the Japanese areas, or Japan areas that are being affected. And then even right where we see this mark right here for the 25 line, that's where we have a couple of intense threats going on right there. And then looking here at this very far line down here that would go into the Pacific Ocean, we have activity going on there as well. And as I said, it does exceed past the eclipse lines, as you can see with the activity going on right north of Australia. So current volcanic activity in Japan, I got all this information from the Discovery, volcanodiscovery.com. Japan, I'm not even going to try to say that. Explosive activity continues. So continues. This is an ongoing thing. Volcanic Ash Advisory Center, Tokyo warned about volcanic ash fumes or whatever. And then I kind of skimmed back down through this. Another area in Japan, which is that other red part on the diagram, has volcanic ash advisory in Tokyo, and so then it starts going into the caps about exploding. I just actually copy and pasted this from the website, so I don't know if I'm just projecting, but when somebody puts it in caps, yeah. Anyway, so Kratu, however you say that, this is actually the volcanic activity going on in Indonesia. As I said, that was going to be one of the countries or regions that will be affected by these themes. So explosive activity is continuing. So there's volcanic activity, volatile volcanic activity happening in multiple regions that were listed with the localized area of the solar eclipse. So these are going to continue. So it's saying explosive activity continues. I got this straight from the website. So if you want to check any of the up-to-date things, or if you want to see the videos and all the really graphic stuff that they're documenting with this, you can go to volcanodiscovery.com and check on that. So concluding transit events, the eclipse looks like it'll just be an exaggerated ongoing volcanic activity for the most part. Some political or defense actions by the countries in the region are also possible. I did see some sort of news report about how there's been some sort of Navy ships, Chinese Navy ships in the ocean testing things. That could also fall under this eclipse aspect patterns going on. So the volcano discovery news thread highlighted tsunamis triggered by the violent volcanic activity that happened in December. There'll likely be earthquakes associated with this as well. So with Neptune in the 8th house, aspecting Jupiter in the 5th house, those are the future houses, remember, that translates to future tsunamis in these regions as a result of this volcanic activity becoming more volatile than it already is. So they could intensify where they're really volatile, or the ones that are just seeing mild activity could escalate. Tsunamis will likely be in Japan, Indonesia, parts of Indonesia, or the islands above Australia. It could potentially hit Hawaii or affect the Alaskan Peninsula as well. Alaska Peninsula, I suspect, actually will be more earthquakes than anything, but can have tsunami warnings as well. I speculate the heat index inconsistencies with this winter season as well, with the volcanic activity, will also contribute to the dry, warm winter weather in this region and areas not far beyond. So parts like the United States and that will be having an abnormal winter. That could be contributed to the heat index with the volcanic activity. All right.